Hello and welcome to Business 7. How important is employee well-being to a company's corporate risk strategy? That is only one of the topics we will cover in tonight's program. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
Connection. It's in the human touch, the feeling of belonging. It inspires us and empowers us, creates clarity from complexity. It starts new conversations, unlocks the power of advice, and makes an impact on your life. At Alex Forbes, we pioneer insight to provide you with advice that connects your decisions of today to your impact tomorrow.
Let's kickstart this program by taking a look at the most important business stories of the past week in Africa. This video was compiled by Reuters.
Here's what's been making the business headlines in sub-Saharan Africa this week. Somalia has rejected any discussions with Ethiopia over the latter's agreement to lease a port in Somaliland. Under a recent memorandum of understanding, Ethiopia would consider recognizing the breakaway region's independence in return for gaining access to the Red Sea partly through the port lease. On Thursday, regional heads of state gathered in Uganda to try to defuse the growing diplomatic crisis. Nigeria's former central bank governor, Godwin Emefiele, was on Friday charged with fraud, including obtaining $6.2 million in bank funds under false pretenses, part of 20 charges leveled against him by prosecutors. Emefiele pleaded not guilty. His trial will begin next month. Also in Nigeria, its junior oil minister has said regulatory approval will be given for Shell's decision to sell its onshore oil and gas assets to a consortium. Following years of spills, sabotage and court cases, Shell announced its onshore exit on Tuesday, opting to focus its future investments on its less troubled offshore assets. Tanzania said on Tuesday it had reinstated approval for Kenya Airways to operate flights between Nairobi and Dar es Salaam. It had banned the national carrier's flights the day before, after Kenya refused to grant a request for Air Tanzania to operate cargo flights between the two countries. Tanzania said that request has now been granted. And finally, the African Development Bank has said all its international staff will return to Ethiopia, a month after they were withdrawn following an assault on staff members by government security forces. In a statement, AFDB said Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed had apologized for the incident and assured safety and security for the bank and its staff.
It's early in the year and you still have time to ensure that your employees' well-being is a critical part of your company's risk strategy. To guide you along the way, we've got Horst Simon. He is an expert in the field at Capricorn Group. We all know that employee well-being is very, very important for a company, but did you know that it's actually a crucial part of a company's risk management strategy? Now, we have an expert in the studio here. Thank you very much for joining us, Horst Simon. He's the Business Risk Officer at the Capricorn Group. Welcome to our studio.
Thank you very much, Jo-Marie. It's nice to be here, and thank you for the opportunity to chat about this.
Well, of course, you can read Horst's entire article in the printed version of Biz 7 today in the daily newspapers, Republikein, Algemene Zeitung, and Namibian Sun, and you can also read it on our website or on LinkedIn. But let's get back to a conversation about this. Now, in this article, it starts off rather intimidating because you talk about effective neuroscience and social neuroscience. What are those?
I think we do have the formal academic definitions for those in the article, but I'm not a neuroscientist, I'm a risk practitioner. But I think the important part of that is that how do these things affect people's decisions and the perception of risk? Because the management of risk is all about the person's response to a situation of risk, and that's influenced by a whole lot of things. And if we look at different influences over the years, we focused on a lot of the things like culture, like background, like generations even, but we didn't look at the emotions. And with COVID-19 and the highlight around well-being of our employees, this is also a key element that we need to look at when it comes to the perception of risk and the response to risk. So that links back to the neuroscience, where we look at how your emotions and play into your decision you take on the management of risk. Because people think a lot about it's the historic data that we convert into all these reports, but when the time comes, how you respond, that is what is the key element to the effective management of risk.
And I was delighted to see that an influential group like Capricorn released this thought leadership piece by you, because since COVID-19, it's been an ongoing debate globally, the effect of the pandemic and the consequences and trauma thereof on employees' well-being, and how that in the end will impact on corporates. A healthy employee, now I'm not talking about me, so you can't cite me, but what does a mentally healthy employee look like?
Yeah, I think just maybe to take a quick step back,
Yes.
Capricorn Group started with the Risk Culture Builder program in 2019 when I came back to Namibia specifically to look at risk culture. And then, as you mentioned, with COVID, there's more focus on it. I think for the healthy employee, the key element, we highlight a few things in the article, but the key one to me is that self-motivation. It's that ownership. I own how I respond to a situation of risk. I own my perception of that. And I need to be aware of, for example, biases that play into this. And I need to be aware of my emotions. When I get up this morning and I'm not in a good mood, I may take the wrong decision with regards to the management of risk in my job. So I need to be aware of those things. So for me, the key element there is that ownership and that self-motivation. There are a few others that we mentioned, but to me that's the most important thing, that the employee owns it. Don't wait for your manager to come and tell you, this is the way you should do it. Own it, know what the shortcomings are, know what your emotions are, and then know that affects how you respond to that situation of risk.
And that doesn't just pertain to the workplace. As we've seen globally, it is an ongoing movement of self-awareness and mindfulness, as they call it, that you should be totally in touch with your emotions so that you can manage them and detach them sort of from your actions, because they can influence your actions quite drastically. Yeah,
they definitely influence your actions, and in our focus, how you respond to a situation of risk. I often in the training sessions, I often use the example of the married men and the single men in the room, and I ask them, if you have a fight with your wife or your girlfriend, do you just quietly close the door, pull away and drive within the speed limit? And normally the woman will burst out laughing while the men still think on how to answer this question. So yes.
And here we have the same scenario.
Your emotions plays a role.
It does indeed, and it has consequences. Yeah. We've looked at the employee side of things, but what is the role that leaders in corporations and companies can play to promote this well-being?
Yeah, I think, again, I mentioned a few in the article, but the key one that stand out is that open conversation, creating that environment where people feel safe. You'll see, and you've probably read a lot about the psychological safety aspects and all those things we talk about nowadays, but that to me is the important thing. Leaders need to be open to these conversations. Linking it back to the management of risk and risk culture, the conversations are more important than the reports, because the reports are normally as at the end of last month or last quarter, but the conversations are what drives the responses. Exactly. And that is an important thing, creating that environment where we're not going on a witch hunt if you raise something negative. We're going to look at what are the lessons that we learn and how do we take it forward to have effective management of risk in our business.
But to feel safe and to have that confidence, there should also be a big element of trust.
Yes, definitely. That is, it can never exist without that element of trust. And again, there's a lot of research lately around the element of trust, and also how that got highlighted through the pandemic that we've just gone through, that people didn't feel that they can disclose that I have COVID. And then there's also all of a sudden this stigma and thing that come out of it, where we really need to work on how we treat our employees and how we create that well-being for our employees in that open conversation platforms, in all aspects. It's not just from the top, it is horizontal as well, and it is from the bottom up as well. People need to feel free to have those open and frank conversations about risk, and as we mentioned, be aware of how their emotions influence those conversations and those perceptions.
Very much so. As a final question, a roundup comment, could you elaborate on how important it is to have positivity in the workplace?
It's very important. I think you wouldn't have asked the question if it wasn't, but the whole world is negative around us. A lot of what we read, a lot of what we hear, a lot of what we see, and we tend to focus on those negative things and how that affect the way I'm working or the way my company is operating. We need to look at that. Risk is always risk and opportunity. In every situation of risk, there's also a situation of opportunity. So we need to move this backward thinking of risk management that is all about reports and colors and those kind of things to a more positive forward thinking. Where are the opportunities? Where can we take more risk for more reward without compromising the quality of what we're doing and the profitability of our business?
It has been delightful talking to you. Please read the article. It is extremely insightful. Thank you very much for driving, you and Capricorn, for driving this agenda too, because it's incredibly important, not only in Namibia's economy, but globally. Horst, Simon, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Jo Marie. I enjoyed being here. Thank you.
Every day, you make choices that make you legendary. Journey together with us on the path to securing your legacy as a member of the League of Legends. With the Select Platinum Bundle Fee Premium Bank offering, you will access tools that will enable you to thrive. If you earn 850,000 Namibian dollars per annum or more, you can apply for this offering today via bankvintage.com.na for only 447 Namibian dollars per month. Bank Vintage, a member of Capricorn Group.
Food inflation in Africa's largest economy has hit its highest levels since 1996. To tell us more is David Doyle from Reuters.
Nigeria's inflation rate rose to its highest in more than 27 years in December, the latest statistics showed on Monday, as food prices surged. The 12th straight monthly increase in consumer inflation is exacerbating a cost of living crisis in Africa's largest economy. It's also piling pressure on Nigeria's central bank to raise interest rates. Its governor, Olayemi Cardoso, is yet to hold a rate-setting meeting since taking office in September. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, consumer inflation was up from 28.2% in November to 28.92% in December. That's the highest level since mid-1996. The food inflation rate, which accounts for the bulk of Nigeria's inflation basket, went from 32.84% the month before to 33.93% in December. The Statistics Office said prices rose for a broad range of food items, including bread and cereal, oil, fish, meat, fruit, and eggs. Analysts say higher fuel prices and a weaker naira currency have also stoked price pressures. Last May, President Bola Tinubu embarked on Nigeria's boldest economic reforms in decades. He scrapped a costly but popular fuel subsidy and devalued the currency to try to revive economic growth. However, growth is yet to pick up, and inflation has worsened.
In Benin, a clever entrepreneur has come up with a novice idea to create energy from waste. Let's take a look at his story.
This food waste is going to be transformed into fuel that can once again be used to cook or even heat this home. It's thanks to a local firm in Benin that's transforming everyday bio-waste into a powerful energy source. Enoch Ganega is the founder of Benin Biogas. His team is revolutionizing how hundreds of homes and more than a dozen farms manage waste and energy.
On this farm, all the waste from livestock and processing will be recovered as gas products. In the logic of being able to power the ovens, the whisks for the ovens, the cooking, the toasting, but also produce electricity.
Benin Biogas has built networks of concrete tanks beneath neighborhoods and industrial zones. They act as reactors, transforming organic waste into biogas, a methane-rich energy source that now provides fuel for over 560 households. Ganega says he was inspired as a student. He watched one day as a candle inadvertently fell into his food waste bin.
When it caught fire, I thought, what is this? I became interested in this by discussing with my environmental chemistry professor. That's where he told me it was okay. It's biogas.
The company is even able to provide 24-hour off-grid electricity in some areas and convert the compost waste into high-quality fertilizer, supporting local agriculture and reducing farmers' reliance on imported, expensive, and potentially damaging alternatives. Ganega says he knows it's not the total end to fossil fuels, but in a world grappling with climate change and the search for sustainable energy solutions, he hopes his complete waste-to-energy cycle will usher in a renewed dedication to environmental stewardship in Benin.
The Agenda is a weekly national affairs interview program hosted every Sunday by Namibian Sun editor Toivon Jabela, featuring a panel of high-profile newsmakers, analysts, and experts. The Agenda aims to reach high-end news consumers seeking informed understanding of national issues. This show is broadcasted on NTV, 1up2.com, and the Namibia Media Holdings Facebook platform. The Agenda focuses on interviews where we put the nation in the hot seat. Contact Agenda at synergy.com.na to get your product and service in the hot seat. The Agenda, focused on today's conversation.
Earlier in our program, we briefly touched on a Shell withdrawing part of its business from Nigeria. Now, the British energy major has been in the country since 1930. Let's get the story behind the story.
Shell has agreed to sell its onshore oil and gas business in Nigeria for up to $2.4 billion after nearly a century of operations. The British energy major said on Tuesday that it would sell the Shell Petroleum Development Corporation of Nigeria Limited to Renaissance, a consortium of 5 mostly local companies. The deal is made up of an initial consideration of $1.3 billion, with the buyers making an additional payment of up to $1.1 billion at completion. Shell has been active in the West African country since the 1930s, but it has for years struggled with hundreds of oil spills at its onshore operations as a result of theft, sabotage, and operational issues. That's led to costly repairs and high-profile lawsuits. Shell said Renaissance will take over responsibility for dealing with spills, theft, and sabotage. However, Nemo Bassi, executive director of Nigerian advocacy group Health of Mother Earth Foundation, said that Shell must own up to its responsibility. That, he said, means full payment for the remediation and restoration of the polluted areas as well as reparations to the host communities, adding they cannot walk away from the virtually irreparable harm they have caused. SPDC Limited operates and has a 30% stake in the SPDC joint venture that holds 18 onshore and shallow mining leases. Shell's resources in SPDC reached around 458 million barrels of oil equivalent by the end of 2022. The sale to Renaissance requires the approval of the Nigerian government. Shell will also remain active in Nigeria's more lucrative and less problematic offshore sector. The exit is part of a broader retreat by Western energy companies from Nigeria as they focus on newer, more profitable operations. ExxonMobil, Italy's Eni, and Norway's Equinor have struck deals to sell assets in the country in recent years.
Let me quickly show you something.
Don't worry. Next time, I check nice.
Thanks, but it's okay. FNB Insurance checks nicer.
At FNB Insurance, we provide cover for all your valuables. From your phone, to your laptop, to your car. FNB Insurance. You value it, we cover it. T's and C's apply.
That's it for Business 7 for this week. We'll catch you again next week, same time, same place. Until then, stay safe.
We are all seeking connection to each other, to the world, to the spaces we exist in.
Poor sportsmanship right now from the lads.
You might be physically ready, your body is ready, but mentally.
Here's another chance, and it is a goal from Vindo Kahana.
Sy sê wie hy is er aan neertrek en daai bal het my grond gevat. Ja, hy het grond gevat en is
but just enough next.
Shh. Running that mountain up. Okay, so we will be doing this for the mountain climber. More advanced, slightly advanced.
So is jou trolley reg? Want
I love it. I love it. So then we
kickstart our countdown at number 5 with this one.
Op Netwerk TV se Klets Kompas gesels ons nuus van 'n Maandag tot Donderdag. Ons kyk ook na die weer en meer. Stories wat jou raak en stories wat saak maak.
They've made a mistake in denying me bail, and they've made several other mistakes in many other cases.
The channels that teach us something new or reflect our expression. So it goes beyond switching to the right station. It's about choosing the experience that can adorn the present, dressing it with our tastes as we expand our preferences, because what we are actually connecting to is boundless, limitless human energy. And this is the spirit of NTV.